Hello, welcome to Lesson 16 from my book Babette's Quick Start Guide to Theory for Fiddlers, Book 1. My name is Babette. Today's lesson is titled 1-4-5 or more on background. 1-4-5 refers to a chord progression and it is one of the most often used progressions in fiddle music, although you can find this in many other types of music as well. If you're the soloist, it's what the people behind you are playing. Or if you're playing behind someone else, you would be playing in that progression as well. So let's look at some chords for an example on how to back someone else up. Okay, let's say we're in the key of D. This is an example of how the chords could be written. D, 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 A, D, 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 A, D. In the second line, D, G, D, A, D, D, G, A, D. Now, let's change that to chord numbers. So we've replaced, since we're in the key of D, the D would be 1. So every D is a 1. When we see A, we know that A is 5. So we put a 5 in there. The next note there is a G. And we know that G is 4. So we've put a 4 in those spots. So what we now have is 1, 1, 1, 5, 1, 1, 1, 5, 1. And on the second line, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 1, 4, 5, 1. Now let's remember, take a look at the notes you can play. In the key of D, when you see the 1 chord, you can play a D or an A. When you see the 5 chord, you can play an A or an E. And when you see the 4 chord, you can play a G or a D. Well, now let's take a look at the worksheet for 1-4-5 or more on background. Question 1. What is one of the most used chord progressions? Well, that progression is 1-4-5. Question 2. In the following keys, what 2 notes can you play in the 1, 4, and 5 chords? In the key of D, for the 1 chord, you can play D and A. For the 4 chord, you can play G and D. And for the 5 chord, you can play A and E. Now for the key of A, for the 1 chord, you can play A and E. For the 4 chord, you can play D and A. And for the 5 chord, you can play E and B. Question 3. Here are the chords we used in the lesson. Below the numbered chords, write the letter name of the chords that will be played in the key of G. Okay, so that would be G, 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 D, G, 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 D, G. And then G, C, G, D, G, C, G, D, G. Now for our review questions. Number 1, what key is this? There are 3 flat signs. That means it's in the key of E flat. And what are the flats? That would be B flat, E flat, and A flat. Question 2, what is the subdominant? Well, the subdominant is the 4th note of the scale, or the fourth degree? Question 3. What key is this? There are 3 sharps there. So with 3 sharps, we know it's in the key of A. And what are the sharps? The sharps are F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. If you have any questions or comments, please do not hesitate to leave them for me. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.